Hello, lovelies. My name is Dr. Lisa Mateka, and I am branding myself as a cancer transformation guide. I help those with cancer navigate their inner journey towards health and wellness on all levels, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, to stack the odds in their favor and self-realize wholeness without having to suffer and figure it out alone. And today, I was going to do a longer video this time, but there's a very important concept that I wanted to share sooner than later. I may have alluded to it in ways before, but it is truly one of, I would say actually the most pivotal, important thing I think I learned about cancer and the most important message I could convey. So I actually want to keep this video relatively short and sweet because people tend to oftentimes not listen to videos that are too long. So I'm going to make it easy and digestible, and let's get right into it then. So there is a concept, a school of thought, that there can be an emotional basis to cancer. Yes, there can be an emotional root to cancer. Just, I guess, take that in for a second. So I'm not just, I didn't just make this up myself. I didn't just pull it out my ass. This is definitely a real school of thought by many people who work with cancer patients, and there is some science behind it. And I guess I can start by talking slightly about Kelly A. Turner's research. She studied those cancer patients who had a spontaneous remission. This is like over 10 years of compiled research, and she came up with 10 healing factors for what people who had a spontaneous remission had in common. And one of those was releasing suppressed emotions, and one of those was increasing positive emotions. So those things really can lead to healing, and a lot of people believe that they can be the underlying cause as well. So there are unhealthy expressions of emotions, as we know. They are suppression, which is more unconscious. Repression is more unconscious. Suppression is a little bit more on the conscious level. Escapism, expression actually can be not such a good way to, of course there's benign ways of emotional expression, and usually positive emotional expressions aren't a problem. But when you're really expressing a negative emotion, a lot of times you're getting sucked into it, you're indulging in it, and that cannot be good. Now, I guess the way towards healing is the letting go and the surrendering. So you do allow yourself to feel the emotion. You do allow yourself to feel it, sit with it, be with it. No, it isn't you, but see what it has to show you and teach you, and then let it go. I didn't actually mean to get into all that right now. There's a great book on that if you're interested in that. It's called Letting Go by Dr. David Hawkins. But anyway, yeah, there's many people who have sort of studied this sort of thing. You can look into, I'll leave some of these resources in the description. The work of Louise Hay, she kind of connects very specific emotional events with specific manifestations of disease. It can be a good guide for generalizations, but it's not always accurate. It doesn't always end up that way. Any kind of emotional repression or suppression, I believe, can really manifest itself in any way. Then there's German New Medicine. They actually did a bunch of amazing research. That's something to look into if you don't want to just take my word for it. And you shouldn't just take my word for it. You can do some research on this. Also remember, there was a time, not too long ago actually, where the idea that anything we think or feel leading to disease was just quackery and nonsense. And now, even in conventional mainstream medicine, we know that that is a thing. It's called stress. It's very much, very, very well accepted that stress can lead to disease states, conditions, deleterious health consequences, taxing on the body, all sorts of things. And stress really is feelings, it's emotions, it's boils down to fear. fear-based, some panic, anxiety can be in there, overwhelm. And same with depression, which is like a constant sadness that has deleterious health consequences as well. So there is, some parallels in mainstream medicine that the way that we feel can manifest as disease. And it's also becoming very widely accepted by scientists, especially those that are studying more quantum mechanics and things of that nature, that our thoughts, intentions, and feelings dictate our reality, because that's the way it works in the quantum world. It changes the probability distribution, our intents, thoughts and behavior. So I just want you to sort of get a little bit of a foundation that this isn't just something I'm saying. There's some science to it, and some people that have, done their own sort of work, whether it be anecdotally. And I just want to invite you all. I just want to invite you to, I guess I should first preface this. This is very, very, very important. Don't use what I'm saying as a means to beat yourself up or blame yourself, or resist this information because you feel like it's an attack, like something that you did cause this. That is not at all what this is about, because blame, self-blame, blame on others, no sort of blame is going to do any good, and that's not what this is about. This is more about asking the questions: what can I learn from this? And maybe what can I do to improve this? So, yeah, emotional roots to cancer come in many forms. A lot of times people with early childhood trauma basically were not set up from such a young age to properly deal with that, and it has been carried with them and later manifests as disease such as cancer. But also trauma at any age, adulthood, it really doesn't matter. Any kind of trauma. If you have cancer, you want to definitely look and see if you have a history of trauma. And I guess that's a big word. Trauma can be the obvious things we think of as trauma, but it can also just be anything that you felt was traumatic for you. And as children, the littlest, silliest things truly can be traumatic to a child because they simply don't have the prefrontal cortex and the understanding to know what it means. Even if no trauma, I do want to say grief is a big one. I think the biggest ones that I personally found are people that have some grief or anger. So even if you think, a lot of people, especially when they get into their older age, experience loss, because you have people dying, friends, family, and of course grief can also be loss of relationships, loss of a business. And sometimes people think like, oh no, I'm fine, I've dealt with that, but really they haven't. So the tough part here is, if you have cancer, you may just not know what your emotional roots are because it may be buried so deep, suppressed, repressed. You may think you're fine. So I guess that's where I'm just going to invite you for some very deep self-reflection. Give yourself the time, give yourself the space, give yourself the vulnerability, the honesty, because it's only going to serve you. And then just, sorry, tickle in my throat. And then just sort of ask, like, what emotions may I be experiencing that are not serving me? That's a good question to ask. And if you really still feel like you have no idea, if your history doesn't really give an idea of some emotions that would be expected and understandable to feel, you can study things like the chakras. Each of the chakras, if they're completely underdeveloped, out of alignment, blocked, that can lead to physical disease. So you can study what each of the chakras means, as well as what organs that it corresponds to. And same with Chinese medicine. They have meridians that connect the whole body, different organs to each other. And in Chinese medicine, they actually have, and that is an old medicine, I'm talking traditional Chinese medicine from long, long ago. they actually have different emotions that correspond to different organs. So that's something you can look into. At some point, I might do a deep dive and really get into some of these finer details, as well as some of the more esoterics, but I really was trying to keep it somewhat short and simple. And yeah, you could look into Louise Hay, German New Medicine, further look into the research of, I'm spacing on her name now, spontaneous remission, Kelly A. Turner. And just, again, the most important thing is not to blame yourself and not to beat yourself up and not to wallow in self-pity or be angry because you're perceiving me to say this is your fault or something. That's not what I'm saying. It's just sometimes when we don't deal with emotions properly, and everybody does it, everyone on this planet has or is dealing with some sort of emotion improperly. It just can manifest in different ways. Some people's challenges will be physical health issues, and some people's challenges will be other things. So, yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say about that for now. And this was completely off the cuff. Just wanted to let you all know that I believe there is, and many, many people believe, and there is some evidence to support that there is an emotional basis to cancer. So just keep that in mind. I really just wanted to put it in your awareness. Now, for many of you, it's like, well, yeah, duh. This is going to come as nothing new, because you may have already be resonating this information. You may have been studying, this sort of stuff, or be more on that metaphysical, spiritual journey. So this will be no surprise. And then to some of you, it may be a surprise. So I wanted to just sort of keep it a little bit short and light. And what to do about it? Now there's a big question, which is more than I can get into on this video. But I'll just briefly mention, part of Kelly A. Turner's research is the people during their cancer journey who did seek professional help, some sort of therapy, and it doesn't have to be like a certified psychiatrist or psychologist or therapist, but some people who sought some other sort of help, emotional support. Maybe it was just a life coach, maybe it was a shaman, maybe some of them just did their own emotional work with journaling, that sort of thing, art therapy, music therapy. I mean, there's innumerable ways. And meditating, of course, helps, because it really helps you connect with that part of yourself, the deeper part. And I think that's a really, really, really important key to anyone regaining health in their cancer. And sometimes it is a purely physical cause, but oftentimes it's much deeper than that. So take that into consideration, and I think I will stop there. So thank you, everybody. Please, if you know anyone with cancer, share these videos. And then, as always, like, subscribe, and this is not supposed to be a thumbs down. It's supposed to be a down there in the description where all those buttons are. Like, subscribe, comment, all that sort of stuff, so I can help these reach more people. All right, thank you all.